Darth Nihilus' failure to consume Meetra Surik aboard the Ravager has been a point of debate among Star Wars fans, particularly given Nihilus' near-unstoppable ability to drain entire planets of life energy. While some explanations suggest that Surik, as a wound in the Force, was immune to his technique, a deeper analysis of Sith Force drain mechanics, combined with historical Force techniques, suggests a more nuanced possibility. This essay proposes that Meetra Surik utilized a variant of Ulic Qel-Droma's Force energy shield technique, allowing her to mask her nature as a wound in the Force and deceive Nihilus into attempting to drain her as if she were a regular Force sensitive. This deception, in turn, led Nihilus to unknowingly weaken himself even further. Darth Nihilus' unique form of Force drain functioned as a parasitic ability, allowing him to consume the life essence of those connected to the Force. However, this was not a simple act of siphoning energy. Nihilus' hunger was insatiable and seemingly indiscriminate. His very existence as a wound in the Force was sustained by his ability to absorb the life force of others. Yet, there is an underlying flaw in this ability. Nihilus did not merely drain the Force from others. He required Force-sensitive beings as his primary source of sustenance. Non-Force sensitives, while affected by his drain, were not nearly as nourishing as Jedi, Sith, or other strong Force wielders. Thus, Nihilus targeted individuals based on their perceived connection to the Force. This is where Meetra Surik's nature as a wound in the Force becomes relevant. As someone who had been cut off from the Force after the Mandalorian Wars, Surik's connection to the Force was different from that of normal Jedi or Sith. If Nihilus fed on her normally, he would have been consuming something fundamentally unlike any previous victims. Ulic Qel-Droma's mastery of the Force, particularly his resistance to the Dark Reaper, presents an interesting precedent for countering Force-based energy absorption. During the Great Sith War, Qel-Droma utilized a specialized technique to protect himself against the Dark Reaper's devastating ability to drain Force energy from its victims. This technique involved creating a Force energy shield, not merely a defensive barrier, but a controlled manipulation of ambient Force energy that effectively disrupted the absorption process. By draining Force energy in his surroundings and sacrificing it before it could be taken from him, Qel-Droma rendered himself effectively immune to the Dark Reaper's abilities. Instead of being drained, he absorbed and expelled energy in a manner that denied the Reaper any sustenance. This method serves as an ideal countermeasure to Nihilus' feeding process. If Meetra Surik, either through her own knowledge or instinct, employed a similar strategy, she could have masked herself as a normal Force-sensitive being while simultaneously neutralizing Nihilus' ability to consume her energy effectively. Given that Meetra Surik was a wound in the Force, she functioned as an anomaly, much like Nihilus himself. This meant that her presence in the Force was not a regular connection. It was more of a void, absorbing and resonating with the energies around her in an unstable manner. However, if she had learned or subconsciously replicated Qel-Droma's Force shield technique, she could have artificially stabilized her Force signature, disguising herself as a standard Force user rather than a wound in the Force. This deception would have tricked Nihilus into believing he could feed on her the way he had consumed countless Jedi before. By the time Nihilus initiated his drain, it would have already been too late for him. Instead of drawing upon an infinite well of Force energy as he expected, he was met with a controlled, shielded flow of Force energy that effectively starved him. In this moment, Nihilus would have been forced to consume only what she allowed him to, ultimately weakening himself instead of gaining strength. This would explain why Nihilus, despite his immense power, visibly faltered after attempting to drain Surik. His over-reliance on his hunger as a weapon had become his greatest weakness. Once his target manipulated his feeding process, he was left vulnerable. Meetra Surik's use of this technique, whether consciously or instinctually, was not merely a show of strength. It was an incredible act of tactical deception. Nihilus had likely never encountered an individual capable of countering his drain in such a way, meaning he would have approached the encounter with confidence, expecting an easy victory. However, by feeding on an illusion, a carefully crafted manipulation of her force signature, Nihilus effectively poisoned himself. His own hunger, the very thing that had made him so powerful, became his downfall. This also aligns with Krya's description of him as a spiraling death that must feed to survive, or it will consume itself. By denying him what he truly needed, Meetra Surik accelerated his self-destruction. If this theory is correct, it suggests that Meetra Surik's victory over Nihilus was not a mere matter of power but of intelligence and mastery over the Force. It also implies that the ability to counter Force drain is not necessarily tied to raw power, but to one's understanding of how Force energy flows and can be manipulated. Additionally, this theory reshapes the perception of Nihilus' abilities. While he was unquestionably powerful, his dependence on Force drain made him vulnerable to those who understood how to deny him nourishment. This means that rather than being an unstoppable force, Nihilus was always at risk of collapsing under his own hunger if he could not feed. Moreover, this perspective adds depth to Meetra Surik's character. If she truly employed a variant of Keldroma's technique, it demonstrates her ability to adapt and innovate in ways that few Force users could. It also aligns with her role as an individual who defied conventional Force teachings. Just as she learned to function without the Force, she learned to counter one of the most feared abilities in Sith history. Darth Nihilus' failure to drain Meetra Surik aboard the Ravager was not a matter of simple immunity but of strategic manipulation of the Force. By utilizing a variant of Ulic Keldroma's Force energy shield technique, Surik was able to mask her nature as a wound in the Force and trick Nihilus into attempting to feed on her in a conventional manner. This deception led to his own self-weakening, hastening his downfall. This theory not only explains a long-debated moment in Star Wars lore but also reinforces the idea that power in the Force is not solely about strength. It is about understanding, adaptation, and control. Through intelligence and mastery, Meetra Surik turned Nihilus' greatest weapon against him, proving that even the most feared Sith Lords could be undone by their own arrogance.